At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion for our latest episode in our What Was It Like To series. In this episode, I was joined by Emmet McNamara, who in July 2020 rode Serpentine, the shock winner of the Derby, for trainer Aidan O'Brien. What was it like to win the Derby?
Oh, God, Stephen. I think at the time, surreal was the word I used, and I'd still say probably to this day that it probably describes it best. It kind of really was, I suppose, a derby like no other from the point of view of it was the height of COVID, no crowds, and everything that the derby is supposed to be about, the fanfare, the pomp, the ceremony, I suppose all those kind of things weren't there, but there was still a horse race over a mile and a half for 3-year-old only colts, and it's obviously a generation-defining race to go and win, and we were lucky enough to manage to do it on the day, so a feeling of, I suppose, surrealism, but at the same time, elation and obviously feeling the satisfaction. And when you go around the ups and downs of Epsom for a mile and a half at that speed, your veins are pumping with adrenaline afterwards. So a real mixture of emotions.
In this podcast, we're going to go a bit deeper now to find out pre-race, what it was like during the race and what you've done since. But to start with, I wanted to ask you, can you remember when you were working at Ballydoyle, the first time you heard about this well-bred chestnut colt, son of Galileo?
Yeah, son of Galileo, out of a mare that was second in Snow Fairies Oaks as well. So bred in the purple, I suppose, and bred very much for the challenges that Epsom presents. But I'd love to say I remember the first day I laid eyes on him or saw him in the yard, but I don't honestly remember. He was there since he was a baby, as a yearling. We'd have broken them in as a bunch in Coolmore. He'd have been there throughout his 2-year-old campaign. He ran in a back-end Galway maiden at the end of his 2-year-old career. Was kind of well beaten, wouldn't have been the most inspiring of runs, but he kind of always promised to be a horse that was going to be better at 3. So I had certainly sat in him a few times before I'd ridden him in the Derby, but he wasn't a horse I was overly familiar with. Alan Crowe, who some of your viewers might remember, was quite a successful jump jockey in Ireland, rode for Christy Roach and Aidan McNamara quite a bit. He used to ride him out a lot, and a girl called Hermine French, they were the ones that had the main things to do with him every day from a ride now point of view. So I knew him, but at the same time I wasn't overly familiar with him. So you sat on him as a 2-year-old before that first run in at Galway on the 17th of September, I think. Yeah, I suppose I'd have sat on him kind of sporadically from when we'd have been breaking in those yearlings in Coolmore. I'd probably got to sit in him once or twice back then, amongst obviously several others, and at a couple of stages through his 2-year-old career, and again as a 3-year-old. But you could kind of see the progression every time. I suppose you were getting to sit on him. He was that type of horse that was bred to do well with time, and he certainly did.
Had you, riding out, sat on any Derby winners before?
Had I ridden? I had actually won a maiden on Wings of Eagles in Killarney, who Pádraig Beggy went on to win a Derby on. So I'd actually ridden him in his maiden win. So I had, and I suppose, look, when you're in a place like Ballydoyle, it's obviously not easy to win a Derby, but nobody wins them more regularly than Aidan. So you come across them. I remember the very first year I started there, it was the week after Australia had won the Derby. I don't think I ever got to sit on Australia, but there was plenty of other horses in the interim that won Guineas and Derbies and other classics as well that I was lucky enough to sit on.
And on a personal level, what was it like riding out during that COVID winter, spring at Ballydoyle?
Oh, look, it was obviously it was a weird one, but luckily for us, I suppose it was deemed to be an essential activity that these horses were continued to be cared for and looked after and exercised throughout COVID. So luckily for us, unluckily for an awful lot of people, our lives weren't as affected as others, and we were able to continue on with our day, I suppose, taking all the precautions that were advised at the time.
Well, racing restarted in Ireland on June the 8th, and Serpentine ran on the 12th of June. He came fifth at the Curragh over 10 furlongs. And then on the 27th of June, he won a maiden at the same course by 9 lengths. And then he's entered in the Derby. When did you find out that you were going to ride him in the Derby? Because Aidan had 6 runners in that year's Derby.
Yeah, it was a kind of a really truncated, I suppose, condensed season, certainly the early part of it. And like you said, everything kind of happened pretty quickly. He was fifth in his maiden and his first run back as a 3-year-old, only with the benefit of hindsight. Did we actually see how good a run that was? Galileo Chrome, who went on to win that year's St. Edgar and Doncaster, actually won that maiden. And then 2 weeks later, he went and won a 1.25 mile maiden in the first time cheek pieces, which he retained when he won the Derby. In the Curragh, Wayne Lorden rode him, and I was just driving into the car park in the Curragh that day behind those white boards that a lot of your viewers might be familiar with, or your listeners might be familiar with. And I was just driving along behind the back of them, and I saw this horse taking a bit of time to pull up under Wayne. He looked like he'd really hit the line strong, and he was an impressive winner of a maiden that day. And I was driving in for a few rides later in the day. He won his maiden well that day, and obviously the Derby was only the following week, so we had to see how he came out of the race. But I think maybe on the Tuesday or Wednesday, Aidan seemed to feel that he'd bounced out of it so well that he thought he was going to let him take his chance. And I got a phone call midweek to say, would I like to go and ride in the English Derby on Saturday and ride in the French Derby on Sunday, and sit up for 2 weeks after that and bide my time in quarantine.
Was this your first ride in the Derby?
It was my first ride in the Derby, yeah. It was a kind of a mad week, really, I suppose, on the day that Serpentine had won his maiden. Later in that day was the Irish Derby. So I was I can't ever remember a time when the Irish Derby was held before the Epsom, but I was second in that evening on a horse called Tiger Moth, who was second in the Melbourne Cup afterwards. A good friend of mine, Shamie Heffernan, beat me ahead, unfortunately for me and fortunately for him, on a horse called Santiago. And I think on the day there was a few other races that would usually be held earlier in the year, the Alleged and the First Flyer and the Vintage Crop. I think they were all on that day. So it was just kind of a bit of a mad time, really. And so things happened quickly, yeah.
And the fact that Aidan had 6 runners in the race, did that indicate that he wasn't sure which one was the best? Because he had Mogul and Russian Emperor, who both went on to win Group 1 races afterwards.
Yeah, I suppose it was a combination of factors, I would imagine. You see, nowadays, obviously, you've the build-up to Epsom, as we've seen this year with the Dante tomorrow, the other trials in Lingfield the weekend just gone, Chester, obviously, the week before. And you have a gradual build-up to the Derby and all the different trials, whereas in that particular year, I'd suppose we had only started racing late in the year, and a lot of people were unsure whether they really did have a Derby horse or not. And I suppose a lot of people were keen to throw their hats in the ring and find out at Epsom whether they had or they hadn't. And Aidan just, I suppose it was really Galileo, probably at the height of his powers then as well too, had a lot of that type of horses that just looked like they were going to suit the challenge. So he let six take their chance.
Because it was the same day as the Oaks when Love, ridden by Ryan Moore, won about an hour before.
Love won about an hour before. Very impressive winner on the day. And I just remember Ryan coming into me after the race and hadn't really spoken to him before that about what we might do in the Derby or what his advice would be. Obviously, he's first jockey to Ballydoyle and Coolmore, so I was going to ask him what he thought was my best plan of attack for Serpentine. So I got a chance to speak to him after Love. He was obviously on a high after that, and he gave me some solid advice, and it worked out, thank God.
Well, there were 16 runners. We've mentioned Mogul and Russian Emperor. There was also Pile Driver, who went on to greater glory. And the favourite was Kamiko, who'd recently won the 2,000 guineas, the fastest ever 2,000 guineas. But what were your plans and what did Aidan say before the race?
Yeah, I think English King was in there as well.
That's the Tories ride,
of Frankie's on the day as well. So pre-race, it looked, even though, as I said, we had... there was a lot of the trials hadn't been run. It still looked a deep enough field. And I suppose from that point of view, I was realistic about my chances. But at the same time, he had won so well the week previous. He had the pedigree to suggest he could be a Derby winner. And Aidan just seemed really confident that he was a horse that was very much on the improving quickly, and that he was going to be able to handle the challenge and that he wasn't going there without his chance.
Does Aidan fill you with confidence?
He does, really. Yeah, he does. Like, even the way he speaks about his horses from year to year, and obviously through the year, he tends not to lose confidence in his horses. He's in there every single day, and he knows that he's training them as well as he obviously possibly can. They're horses with fantastic pedigree, so if you can't have faith in them with the facilities and the I suppose the legacy of success that they have there, who can have confidence in their horses, and he was pretty strong on his chances. Yeah.
You must have been nervous though.
I wasn't really, to be perfectly honest. I suppose I was kind of in Ballydoyle a good 6 years at that stage, and without wanting to sound too flippant, I was kind of used to kind of good horses, and with Aidan, maybe there mightn't have been loads and loads of rides, but the rides you would get would tend to be on maybe the bigger days and that kind of thing. So I had ridden in a few of the other classics and a few other Group 1s, and I was confident enough in my horse and the way that I had planned the race to go. I didn't really feel there was anything that was hopefully going to trip us up. So I was happy enough that I was going to go out. I was on a horse that deserved to be there, and I didn't, I suppose, doubt my own ability or race plan on the day. So no, I wasn't nervous. I was hopeful. I hadn't really ever envisioned, I suppose, pre-race actually winning it, but at the same time, I was looking forward to the challenge.
Enjoying this episode of What Was It Like to Win the Derby? Back in May 2022, I spoke to Joseph O'Brien about his 2 wins in the world-famous race at Epsom in 2012 and 2014. You can find this episode and our whole archive on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel. Let's return to Emmet and race day at Epsom. So race day, Saturday the 4th of July. It must have been weird with nobody there.
Yeah, and I think, like I said to you at the start, a big part of Royal Ascot is the top hats and the picnics, and it's not just the race, and it's everything that goes with it. And the Derby's very much the same. I remember being to a Derby a couple of years previously. The Golden Horn had won, and it was the one and only Derby I had been to previously. And I just remember, the infield being packed out, obviously all the stands, and everyone well dressed, and Her Majesty the Queen there at the time. There was just, there was a lot there apart from just the race. And so I suppose when you're missing that, it doesn't feel like maybe the Derby as such. But like I said again at the start of the piece with you, it was still a race where there was going to be the top mile and a half 3-year-old of that time going to be crowned the winner. So it was very important.
Would a big crowd and a big atmosphere, would it have affected Serpentine, or was he a very calm horse?
No, he was very cool, calm, collected. Didn't affect him at all, really, to be honest. The silence, but having said that, the silence didn't affect him. But any noise, I don't think would have bothered him either. So it was probably to other horses' advantage that there mightn't have been a crowd there. So I'd have probably been happy if there was a crowd there, because I know he would have handled it and it might have disadvantaged other horses. But no, his temperament was never a problem. And I suppose through the race, because of the silence, I was able to hear everything around me and I wasn't distracted. So through the race, it might have been a help that there wasn't crowds there to distract either the horse or my ability to hear behind me or anything like that. But it was just a kind of an eerie silence too, as well, I suppose,
It must have been for you. It must have been like Richard Pittman in the 1973 Grand National, although they did have a big crowd there that day. But could you believe it went so smoothly, because you went straight to the front and you're 12 lengths clear at Tattenham Corner?
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't a surprise. I kind of had hoped it would go that way. And I knew he was going to stay well as well, so I wasn't, I suppose, worried about him folding up the straight. But at the same time, I suppose you just wonder, did he have the ability to beat a field of that quality? No, it went pretty straightforward, really, in fairness. He jumped okay. Ben Curtis was just drawn one horse outside me in 13. I was in 12. And he wasn't keen to get in straight away. So it gave me a seam and an option to get up and kind of get out on the front end, which is where I wanted to be. And I was able to dictate my own fractions from there. And it was relatively straightforward. He went around and changed legs when I wanted to and relaxed well in front. But still carried that good tempo the whole way through the race down the hill and kind of was able to nick a few lengths on the field. And when they weren't handling the downhill run as well as he was able to just get away at a vital point of the race, I suppose.
Did the others get it wrong? Should they have got closer to you?
I don't know. I'm sure with the benefit of hindsight, they would have obviously thought that they should have sat closer to me, but maybe I was lucky a little bit in the way the race panned out. Around Naveen and Khalifa Sack kind of sat second and third. They might have been the quickest and paciest horses in the world, and mightn't have just handled the downhill run as well as my guy, and possibly they just got the rest of the field got held up behind them a fraction as well when I was getting away. So I suppose a few things conspired against the jockeys behind me. But I wasn't complaining, that's for sure.
I haven't looked that carefully, but did you look back at some point?
No, I can't. I don't ever remember looking back in too many races, to be honest with you. The winning post is in front of me, I've always been told. So I remember getting a bollocking when I was pony racing one day for looking around and getting beat. So it kind of still haunts me to this day.
And when you came around Tattenham Corner, were you confident you had something to spare as well in the home straight?
Yeah, I was hopeful that the speed and the fractions that I've gone throughout the race and to that point, that I had enough in the tank to get to the winning post. Now, whether something else was going to get to the winning post quicker than me and run me down was out of my control. But I was confident the way I swung down into the straight and the different breathers that he was after taking throughout the race, that we had enough fuel in the tank to get to the line. So I was just hoping that after we had straightened up, that he would continue to kind of handle the camber of the track as well as he did. And those different things are going through your mind, and you're obviously just trying to spread out the pace as well as you can over the last 2 furlongs, just to make sure you get to that kind of all-important winning line and hit it hard,
Well, you hit it hard. You won by 5.5 lengths. It couldn't have gone better.
No, couldn't have gone better. We had a plan going out to jump, go forward, and nothing crazy until halfway. But when we swung away from the 7 furlong shoot at the top of the hill and we started to move downhill, Aidan was very keen that at that point of the race, even then, that I would start to press on, use the gradient of the track to my advantage, and try and steal a few lengths or take a few lengths, and at that point, and just have that momentum carry me all the way down to the hill, because you're essentially running downhill, flattening out a bit, and only rising the last half furlong. So momentum was key at that point, and it was. When you have a horse that's kind of brave like that and is prepared to attack a downhill run like that, you can obviously really use it to your advantage.
A 25-1 winner, your first Derby. First winner.
Yeah, 25-1. Although there was an awful lot of people told me afterwards they backed him, whether they had or they hadn't, I don't know. So at 25-1, maybe not as many people who said they had him backed actually had him backed, but actually had him backed. But it was look, it was brilliant. Obviously, a very special occasion for myself, all my family and friends, and that, and certainly a day I won't forget in a hurry.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
What was it like being in the spotlight afterwards? And excuse me for saying this, but were some people saying, who is Emmet McNamara?
Yeah, and probably sure, I suppose rightly so. Look, I hadn't had a bad career or anything like that beforehand. I suppose I'd been champion apprentice in Ireland when I was with Gerlines, and I'd been lucky enough to ride kind of Group 2 and 3 and a few listed winners. I had just been touched off the week before in the Irish Derby and placed in 1 or 2 other Group 1, so it was lovely to get that Group 1 on my CV. But I'm certainly not under any illusions. I wasn't a household name by any manner of means. So look, it was obviously very, very nice for that particular day anyway, if for none others, just to be in the spotlight for the right reasons as well too, obviously.
Well, Aidan's other runners came 3rd, 6th, 7th, 8th and 13th. What was his reaction to the victory?
Yeah, I think Aidan was obviously delighted for myself and for all the connections. Mogul would have been first string on the day and went on to prove himself to be a fine horse in the aftermath. Won a Hong Kong Vase and a Grand Prix de Paris. So a top performer. He's gone on to be a stallion now in Coolmore. So it didn't work out for him on the day, but I suppose Aidan trains all them horses to maximise all of their potential, and he was a horse that he gave every chance to on the day, and there was no one more happier than him, I suppose, and obviously Mr. Magner, Tabor, Smith, and their wives as well, that he had won. They were delighted just to see any Coolmore horse win, I guess.
Well, Serpentine went on to race in the Grand Prix de Paris, he came 4th, and the Champion Stakes where he came 4th. Were you always expecting not to ride him again in a race?
Look, you'd always be hoping you might get to sit on him again, but there was nothing guaranteed. Ryan Moore was and still is number 1 jockey there. There was Shamey, Wayne, obviously Christophe Soumillon rode him in the Grand Prix de Paris, who Coolmore used quite a bit when the horses travelled to France, and it would have been lovely to ride him again, but I certainly wasn't expecting to ride him again. And I suppose delighted that the one day I did get to ride him was the the most important day. So I'll be forever grateful for getting on in that day, and I won't rue the fact that it didn't happen again in here, that's for sure.
Did you get to ride him back at home though?
Yeah, I sat on him a few times after the race in pieces of work and that, and have kind of watched him fondly, I suppose, in his career in Australia, which he's won a couple of races there this year in the Gay Waterhouse and Adrian Bott. So glad to see him still going strong and competing at greater level out there.
Yeah, why do you think he didn't reach the heights in Great Britain and Ireland again?
I don't really know, to be perfectly honest. I suppose he was placed in the Grand Prix de Paris afterwards and a British Champion Stakes, so he didn't. He continued to run well for the rest of the year. But I suppose just when those 3-year-olds go and meet those older horses, the 3-year-old generation aren't always aren't as strong as the older horses, and I suppose he just got to his level, and everything on the day in Epsom just suited him really well. Maybe he didn't quite have conditions to suit him quite as ideally for the rest of the year, but he still ran to a decent level, but maybe never quite recaptured the brilliance that he showed that day.
He's obviously a stayer. He's running 2 Melbourne Cups and he's still in training in Australia.
Yeah, ran well in the Sydney Cup also over 2 miles recently. I think he was fourth, and I think he won over 1.5 miles of Grade 3, his second last run as well. So he's obviously very effective at kind of anywhere from 1.5 miles to 2 miles. He's a strong stayer, and he's an honest horse.
Have you seen him since he went to Australia?
Would you believe I actually have the winter before last? I was over in Randwick, and I was lucky enough to catch up with him on a morning in Gay Waterhouse, Adrian Bott. So it was like meeting an old friend. So glad to see I've seen him since he's been out there, and glad to see him doing so well too.
And what about Emmet McNamara? What's he been doing in the last 4 years?
Yeah, so I suppose last year was the last year that I kind of had a handful of rides. I'd gone back and done finance and accounting degree and professional accountancy exams by night during my time riding. And I kind of become a bigger part of the Coolmore operation now in the bloodstock side of things. And I'm in their offices kind of Monday to Friday now, and continue to ride out a bit on a Saturday morning and when time allows. So I'm still keeping the eye in a little bit. Obviously not race riding as much anymore, or this, whether I will or won't go back now, I don't know at this stage. But I haven't renewed my license this year now, but maybe never say never. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, and it's going well for me, thank God.
Well, you're still young.
Yeah, youngish.
Finally, 4 years after winning the Derby, how do you reflect on that day, Saturday the 4th of July, 2020?
Look, it was a dream come true, really. I don't know why my memories are so foggy before Galileo's Derby, but I was 11 when he won. But it really is the first kind of race and memory that I have etched in my head. And just to think, I suppose, that all these years on, that I would win a Derby on a son of his. Mick Kinane was a hero of mine, so to be taking part in such a prestigious race in Mr. Magner's colours and to be trained by Aidan O'Brien, it was just a dream come true, and something that I suppose that I'll reflect on in years to come as something that I was very proud of doing. To be known as an Epsom Derby winning jockey is always nice, always brings a smile to your face when people refer to you that way, and it's just something I suppose I'm quite proud of, delighted that I did, and nice to have the name written in the history books.
It took Sir Gordon Richards 28 times and Frankie Dettori 15 times to win the Derby.
Don't know why it took him so long. I thought it was easy enough, to be honest. I don't think Sir Gordon Richards or Frankie Dettori would be particularly worried now if they saw me landing on their outside at the furlong pole.
And recording now on the 21st of May, will you be watching the Derby on Saturday the 1st of June?
Yeah, of course I will, with great interest as well. I suppose the last couple of weeks the talk has been that it's cutting up quite a bit and that there is no standout horse in it. A lot of people are keen to throw their hat in the ring as a result. City of Troy remains favourite. But I suppose given the way he performed in the Guineas, you can understand why people are keen to try and take him on. Fascinating to see if Economics is going to take his chance after his blitz of the field in the Dante. Hard not to be impressed with him, but you can understand William Haggis's concerns with him around the track. Big burly horse, he mightn't just handle the downhill run to Tattenham Corner and around into the straight. And even if he handle it on the day, what horse are you going to have after the run? And that's obviously a consideration. Ambiente Friendly was very good in Linkfield. Los Angeles looks at Ballydoyle's second string, but no back number. I can't imagine. 3 times he's won from 3 runs, a Group 1 winner already. Roger Teal, wouldn't it be fantastic for him if Dancing Gemini, after his great run in the French 2000 Guineas, was able to show up well? And I suppose after that you have the likes of Ancient Wisdom, who was a little disappointing, I thought, in the Dante, but I'm sure will improve plenty for the run. And it would be unwise to rule out Charlie Appleby. He certainly deserves a change of luck after the last couple of weeks.
And as the insider at Ballydoyle, they're still very confident about City of Troy?
Well, I'm no longer an insider in Ballydoyle. I do work for Coolmore, but I'm not really big. I'm not as big a part of the Ballydoyle operation as I once was. But I still have plenty of friends inside there, and colleagues, and they all seem to be very confident that he'll bounce back and show his true form. And you would have to say, I suppose, that the way he performed last year, you would imagine if he can recapture that he would take an awful lot of beating. He looked top class last year.
And as a previous winning jockey of probably the most famous flat race in the world, what kind of horse do you need to win the Derby?
You need a brave horse, a horse that'll tackle that downhill run and take lengths when others are starting to back out of it. You need a horse that's very, very well balanced. You need a horse that obviously stays the trip well, but has got tactical speed as well. And I suppose, you need luck on the day as well. You need things to go right. You need the right draw. You need to be following the right horse. You need to be, not meeting trouble. And when that camber meets you, when you turn into the straight, you need to make sure you're not getting trapped down the inside. You want to get nice, clear running. So there's an awful lot of factors go into it, but balance and bravery and a bit of class, I think, goes a long way around there.
It all came right for you in 2020, Emmet. Thank you very much for sharing your What Was It Like To moment.
Appreciate it, Stephen. Great to be on with you. Thank you.
Sports Social Podcast Network.